Well, after a weekend of reflection and recharging and circumspection, we are back and we're more fired up than ever to pick up that torch, pick up that microphone, and do what Charlie would want us to do. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of what we do. We are ready to roll, my friends. We're going to give you the latest on the investigation. We're learning more about Charlie Kirk's assassin. We're learning a whole lot more about the organized left in this country. And President Trump wants to peel back the outer layer of the underbelly of the leftist mob and figure out who's funding them, who's organizing them, and stop them once and for all. And we are here for it. We're going to show you what he had to say, what the director of the FBI had to say, and how MSNBC is absolutely apoplectic because Donald Trump refuses to play the both sides game. We refuse to play it too. We're going to give you all that coming up. Plus, what happened at Vigils all across this country for Charlie Kirk? We saw the best and the brightest from the center right, the right, and the center in this country. The left, they showed us who they really were in all their vile, demented hatred. And you need to see it to believe it, and we'll show it to you. Plus, Bill Maher tries to come so close to understanding what's really happening in this culture and in politics, but then he tries to play the both sides game. A lot of people are trying to play the both sides game, and they're lying to get there. We're going to show you that too, and leave you with some hope, with some positive energy about where we go from here in the world after Charlie Kirk's assassination. We are brought to you today by Birch Gold. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Friends, I missed you since Friday. Thank you so much for being a part of what we do here every day. We've created quite a community and quite a family. Your comments on our videos and on our shows over the past week, they've meant the world to us. Everybody here on our production team and at Town Hall writ large. Thank you. Keep it up. Keep telling us what's on your mind, how you're feeling, and what you want from us to be able to form this show into, well, it's your show, really, into what you need on a daily basis during these trying times. Share that downstairs there in the comments section and in the live chat. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We did pass the 600,000 mark on YouTube. We are going to be scheduling a very special show just to acknowledge that and to have something fun just for you guys coming up in the near future. So stick with us on that, and we'll let you know exactly what's happening. Hey, when inflation jumps and you hear the national debt is over $37 trillion, do you ever think maybe now's a good time to buy some gold? Whether as a hedge against inflation or just a sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group believes every American should own physical gold, and they want to make it easy for you. Until September 30th, the end of this month, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is going to offer a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. That's crazy. To claim eligibility and start the process, request an info kit now. Just text Larry to 989898. Plus, Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you're still eligible for that rebate and free metals of up to $10,000. Make right now the time for you to contact Birch Gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy by September 30th. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Claim your eligibility today. Again, text Larry to 989898. Please do that today. Liberals in the media are really angry that Donald Trump refuses to condemn violence on the conservative side of the political aisle because, you know, they're so guilty of assassinations and murders and rioting and arson. And yeah, see, I don't quite get it either. We're going to show you Joe and Mika going absolutely nuts because Donald Trump refuses to play their game. By the way, a demand that they never made on Joe Biden. You remember when he blamed MAGA conservatives for being a threat, an existential threat to our Constitution. Hey, if Donald Trump wins the election and the MAGA Republicans have their way, we're never going to have another election in this country. Do you remember Joe and Mika demanding that Joe Biden tamp down his political rhetoric? Yeah, I don't remember that either. We'll show you what they had to say this morning coming up in a bit. But first, here's President Trump speaking unequivocally about the fact that there is a vast network of left-wing, well-funded groups that are fanning the flames of political discord in this country, and he's had enough, and he's going to investigate them.
Plan on investigating?
We'll see. We'll be announcing. They're already under investigation. They're already under major investigation. A lot of the people that you would traditionally say are on the left.
They're already under investigation?
Already under investigation.
They're already under investigation. Joe and Mika very upset about that because, well, let's face it, they've probably been exchanging text messages and emails with all those various people who are under investigation right now.
I'd love to get your final thoughts as we talk about again and have this morning about the cycle of political violence that has just hurt so many people. Of course, the Kirks, immeasurable pain, the Hortmans assassinated in their home in Minnesota, the Pelosi's, the Scalise's. How does it stop? When does it stop?
It stops when we're all committed to help to stop it. And I think that as we go through the memorial services this week, I would hope the president and others set a high moral tone that we have to stop the violence. And I hope people are on my side of thinking of things would respect the mourning of a family that should never have lost their loved one. You mentioned earlier how I was stabbed once. I went and visited the guy that stabbed me in jail. He did 9 years in jail. And he said, "I can't believe you're doing this for me." I said, "No, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me." We have to learn to be above it and take sometimes painful steps to show that we are not going to become like what we're fighting.
Love your friends, love your enemies. And as Jesus tells us, pray for those who persecute you. And that's certainly what you did, Rev. Jonathan, today, what do we expect the president's day to look like?
Well, as Rev said, and well said, Rev, we also look to our leaders right now for notes of unity, not division, that people hopefully will stop rushing to pass judgment and point fingers at the other. There's still so much we don't know about this particular case, but even in a bigger picture, you'd hope cooler heads could prevail. Let's hope they do at the White House. The president does have an event this afternoon. He's got two events where he'll be in front of the cameras. He undoubtedly will field questions about the Charlie Kirk matter. I think we'll all be waiting to see what he says and what the White House would look to do going forward.
That does it for us this morning.
Yeah, it does it for you, all right. The Rev, they're so happy that the Rev brought his biblical homily to the table. We're real fast on Reverend Al Sharpton. What church does he belong to again? But where is he a reverend? Okay, can I see his sermon, please? Can someone send me a link? Has he ever had a church? I'm pretty sure he's a street preacher. A two-bit charlatan thug who, by the way, was found guilty of defamation of a county prosecutor in New York for falsely claiming that he had raped and kidnapped Tawana Brawley. The entire thing was a hoax, but Al Sharpton fanned the flame of racial division in the 80s and 90s in New York City. He was single-handedly responsible for the Crown Heights riot, as well as a riot in Harlem where people were, the stores were looted and people were injured. I believe in the Crown Heights riot, forgive me if I'm wrong, people lost their lives. He was leading the charge in all of those race riots, and now he's going to be the sanctimonious elder statesman on MSNBC trying to lecture all of us to tamp down the rhetoric. See, when you're MSNBC, you have to turn to Al Sharpton to explain how we got here. And he's the wise old man on the mountain now saying, guys, hey, everyone just calm down and take a breath. You see, but you do that when you're guilty, when you know you're guilty and you don't want to admit your guilt. You see, we on the right, we conservatives right now, as we talk about political violence in America, there's a big difference between us and those on the political left. We have a corpse. We have a dead body. It's been less than a week since he was murdered in front of all of us. He was murdered for being conservative. He was murdered for being an outspoken conservative. He was murdered for speaking his mind. And what was this equivocation that Joe Scarborough tried to employ here?
Yeah, and then have this morning about the cycle of political violence that has just hurt so many people. Of course, the Kirks, immeasurable pain, the Hortmans,
the Hortmans, that is the former Speaker of the House in Minnesota, a Democrat who was murdered on her doorstep by a lunatic who said that Democrat Governor Tim Walz told him to do it. It was also right after she had voted with Republicans, and people on the left were angry at her because she had teamed up with Republicans to make cuts to the state Medicaid budget. But yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing as Charlie Kirk. What else you got there, Joe?
assassinated in their home in Minnesota, the Pelosi's.
The Pelosi's, yeah. Mr. Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, whose home was invaded by a nutbag with a Black Lives Matter sign outside of his home, where he hit Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer, not for any political reason that we're aware of at this moment. It's never come out in any of the judicial proceedings for that nutbag. But sure. It's the same thing, Joe.
Scalise's.
Yeah, the Scalise's. That would be the current majority leader in the House of Representatives when he was gunned down at a baseball field with other Republicans by a guy who was inspired by Bernie Sanders and Rachel Maddow. He gunned them down while they were practicing for the congressional baseball game, and he said that his motivation was political because Republicans in the House were going to be cutting the Affordable Care Act. That one you got right. That is a good comparison. Notice the pattern here? Who else you got, Joe?
How does it stop? When does it?
Funny how he forgot one other act of violence that's happened recently. That would be the attempted assassination twice now of Donald Trump. Why would you leave that out as you were giving us the litany of political violence? Do you see how it's not really an equal playing field here? But they're doing their best. They gotta, and they're so pissed off at Donald Trump because he didn't stand before the American people and try to heal us at this moment of political discord, you know, like Joe Biden did.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism.
Larry, you got that clip?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not share this? I apologize. Stand by.
By Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans quote a clear and present danger to our democracy.
Yeah, if only Donald Trump were a unifier and a healer and led us out of these trying times the way Joe Biden did with his good-natured, unifying language. These people are hypocrites. But on MSNBC, it just continued all weekend long.
Then, on the other hand, he's saying things like this, telling NBC News, we are dealing with a radical left group of lunatics, and they don't play fair, and they never did. Is the president doing anything to help the nation heal, or is he just fanning the flames?
Well, it's not his nature to be a unifier. That's not the way he has practiced politics. Look, most presidents at some point or another practice the politics of division, but typically in a national crisis, at a moment when people are so on edge, when something terrible has happened like this, the traditional playbook for a president is to try to calm the waters, to try to bring people together, to talk about our shared interests rather than to inflame the passions and the anger that are already out there. Look, this is a president who's personally upset about this, right? Let's keep that in mind. Charlie Kirk was a friend of his sons, a friend of J.D. Vance. People in this White House are personally aggrieved and upset and angry, and the anger is coming out, I think, in his public statements. But it's a very different approach than other presidents have taken in this kind of a moment. And the question is, when you talk about radical left lunatics. First of all, you ignore the fact that there's violence across the spectrum. There are, of course, people from the right and the left. You also assume things about this particular shooting that we don't necessarily know 100% yet.
Yes, we do. And I'm sick of this. Oh, there's violence. Of course, there's violence on both sides, but it's not symmetrical violence. It's not equal on both sides. We'll get to that a little later in the show. But this whole idea that a president, past presidents have always translated, well, I just showed you the most recent president and how he behaved himself in unifying our nation. What about Barack Obama? And anytime there was a school shooting in this country, he would grandstand and demonize his political opponents for political advantage while making no concrete contributions to the political discourse. He made it sound like we were in favor of children being slaughtered in their schools. And if you remember right, during the initial concerns about systematic racism in our country, when Black Lives Matter first began, he fanned the flames of that rather than saying, no, we're not a racist country. After all, I'm a black man and I was elected president twice in this country. No. He refused to say that. He would double down and reinforce the idea that we were a racist nation. You remember when the Cambridge police detained a Harvard professor, Lewis Gates, Barack Obama's professor, detained him because there were reports in the neighborhood that was a break-in at Lewis Gates's house. Lewis Gates had lost his key and tried to get into the house. So the cops get there, do typical police protocol, and detained him until he could identify himself properly as the owner of the home. And what did Barack Obama say about that? He said the police acted stupidly. They had to have a beer summit to work it out so that we could all understand the racism in this country. That's how Barack Obama comported himself. Bill Clinton, by the way, doesn't get off the hook here either. After the Oklahoma City bombing, the domestic terror attack in Oklahoma City, Bill Clinton blamed Rush Limbaugh. So stop it with the, past presidents have always risen above the moment to try to bring us together and heal us. No. Democrats have demonized Republicans for political advantage. And there is a big difference here with Donald Trump. Yes, it's true. Charlie Kirk was a personal friend of his and friends of his family. But there's more than that they keep forgetting, that is completely missing from all of the coverage on how Donald Trump has reacted to this assassination of Charlie Kirk. And that is that he himself was just a target of assassination attempts a year ago, with a bullet that missed his skull by this much. And the fact that that doesn't factor into this conversation in any way whatsoever is mind-boggling to me. Trump was then asked about celebrations of this assassination here at home and also abroad.
Have you asked to start revoking the visas of the foreigners who have celebrated Charlie Kirk's death?
No, we haven't, but we are looking at names. We don't like that. That's not right. We wouldn't celebrate if something happened on their side, and we don't. These are sick people. These are really deranged people.
Yeah, that's telling it like it is, and I appreciate him doing that. Marco Rubio reflected on the events of the weekend as well.
We should not be giving visas to people who are going to come to the United States and do things like celebrate the murder, the execution, the assassination of a political figure. We should not. And if they're already here, we should be revoking their visa. Why would we want to bring people into our country that are going to engage in negative and destructive behavior?
That's right. And by the way, for all of the idiots out there who are saying, well, that's not free speech, why you should allow people to have, first of all, if you're in a foreign country and you're trying to petition to become a green card holder in this country, you have no presumption of free speech before you come here. Everything that you have said and done is worthy of scrutiny before we decide to open up our arms and welcome you into our nation. And if we've already welcomed you, there's a big difference between exercising free speech and glorifying murder. Glorifying and celebrating the assassination of a political figure in America. Sorry, that's not free speech. And Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, is absolutely right to scrutinize that. All right, about 3 hours ago, Director Kash Patel appeared on Fox and Friends and revealed some more about what we've learned during the investigation. And there were a few bombshells I want to share with you.
He flexed all resources the FBI had and surged multiple air assets as soon as this shooting occurred. We were cycling in agents, evidence response technicians, hostage rescue technicians, and special operators in and out of Utah, cycling evidence back and forth on these FBI planes as soon as we could so that there was no delay. And what we did once I got there, along with the deputy on the ground around 5 p.m. local on September 11th, was walk the entire crime scene, including the foots the suspect himself took. And what we learned was there was evidence, DNA evidence that could be collected and had been collected, including a screwdriver that was found on the rooftop. Also, we went over to the scene in the wooded area where the firearm was discarded. And the firearm had a towel wrapped around it. It's important. I'll get back to that later. I even walked into the wooded area in the ravine. So I knew from my investigative experience what I could bring to the table and what decisions I needed to make. And having the support of President Trump and the full support of the White House was what we needed for these resources to happen. And I can report today that the DNA hits from the towel that was wrapped around the firearm and the DNA on the screwdriver are positively processed for the suspect in custody.
All right, so that's huge. They've now got DNA evidence linking the suspect to the crime scene and to the towel that was wrapped around the weapon that that was used to murder Charlie Kirk. Excuse me. Now, Kash Patel also revealed some information about a note, apparently, that was destroyed or attempted to be destroyed, that had details tantamount to a confession here.
Written note? Did he write a written note before the assassination attempt? That's what the governor said yesterday. And what did that say? If you could.
So what I'm able to say. I'm sorry. So what I'm able to say is I addressed it partially earlier, is that the written note, we believe, what did exist, and we have evidence to show what was in that note, which is, and I'm going to summarize, basically saying the suspect wrote a note saying, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it. That note was written before the shooting. Evidence of its existence, we now have learned, existed before the shooting, was in the location in the suspect and partner's home. But we have since learned that the note, even though it has been destroyed, we have found forensic evidence of the note, and we have confirmed what that note says because of our aggressive interview posture at the FBI.
There you go. All right. That's kind of a big bombshell as well. There's also information now about a Discord group that this person and his roommate partner, who has now been identified as a man who was attempting to go through the biological or chemical process of changing his makeup to appear to be a woman through pharmaceuticals and potentially through surgical procedures to, display the outward appearance of being a woman. I refuse to say transitioning at this point anymore because it's, a biological impossibility. You're a man or you're a woman. You don't transition from one to the other. You can just do whatever you can extraordinarily to change your appearance, but you're still what you are. That said, apparently these two belonged to an online Discord group that, I'll let Kash Patel take it from here.
But this is a great point. I want to lay out how this works. People think we can just get in these group chats and immediately find out who's in them. We, the FBI, are the investigatory body supporting multiple prosecutions and ongoing investigations. And that's another point. Our investigation at the FBI is ongoing. And there are scores of people in this Discord chat room, but we have to effectuate legal process. We have to go out there with search warrants so that if prosecutors want to later use this evidence, it's not tainted by being illegally obtained. We, the FBI, are running the investigation pointedly on the Discord chat group. There are scores of individuals that are going to be spoken to. There are also lots of family members and friends that have already been spoken to. And one more point on forensics. We were able to obtain in record time the text message chain between the suspect and his live-in partner, as well as other critical cellular information from our CAS team that analyzes cell phone data towers in the area to pinpoint the locations of the suspect and other individuals he was speaking with. This is critical information that the FBI processed and got to prosecutors so they can lawfully use it in a court of law. And our investigation, our interviews continue, but we've learned some shocking things when we spoke to his family and friends as well.
Yeah, and a little bit more on what the family has revealed here. There has been a lot of misinformation and disinformation reported in the media and in little left-wing corners of the blogosphere. And it's working, by the way. I can tell you that I looked at my Facebook, my personal Facebook page, and I have a lot of liberal friends from my old days in the entertainment business. And they are all convinced that this murderer is a white Christian conservative Republican who was influenced to murder Charlie Kirk because he wasn't conservative enough, because of the disinformation that is out there. We'll get into more details of the disinformation and misinformation, because the left is dying to tell you that the main threat in America is white Christian conservative males. And this guy is just another one of them. It just turns out this time he killed another conservative. That's their narrative. But Patel this morning confirmed multiple times now, there is no denying the fact that this murderer, this assassin, was politically motivated, and he was politically motivated because he had turned to radical left-wing politics. Say it again. This person was a radical, is still a radical left-winger, and was motivated by those politics to murder Charlie Kirk out of hate, out of political hate, fomented by the echo chamber on the internet, supporting the idea that Charlie Kirk and Trump and you and I are fascists who need to be silenced. Say it over and over and over again, because the left-wing echo chamber, amplified by legitimate publications and broadcast platforms, continue to either wring their hands saying, well, we're still not sure what the motive was here, or they're outright lying and saying, well, actually, he was a right-winger. It is dumbfounding, but it is true. That's what they're saying. We're used to them lying, but not this egregiously, I'll be honest with you. Not when the evidence is so obvious. And here's Patel setting the record straight this morning.
My job as FBI director is not to speak to motive, is to speak to the facts. And that's what I'm going to do. His family has collectively told investigators that he subscribed to left-wing ideology, and even more so in these last couple of years. And he had a text message exchange, he, the suspect, with another individual, in which he claimed that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and he was going to do it because of his hatred for what Charlie stood for. Those are factually accurate investigatory findings by the FBI that we've handed over to the local authorities and the federal authorities to make their prosecutorial decisions.
All right. And just a little bit of a 1-2 punch here from the FBI, as Deputy Director Dan Bongino also had an appearance this morning on Fox News.
There appear to have been multiple warning signs. You just laid out some of them. There were people in his network, friends and family, who had stated that he had become more political, that he had become, at some parts, I believe some of his coworkers had stated that he had kind of detached himself when the topic of politics came up and walked away from them. Family members said he'd become more political, leading us to believe that this ideology had infected him and had taken over. And he was just intent, it appears, from the data we've accumulated and the channel and that note, which we have some evidence may have existed before based on the communications in that channel, that his target was obviously going to be Charlie, and that people knew in advance. The question is, again, I just want to go back to what you had asked before. Did they know? Were they sure of this? Or did they hear this and just write it off? That's what we're going to have to find out. And that's what we're investigating now. Bill, this investigation is just begun. This isn't even the beginning of the beginning. You know, yes, we have a subject in custody. You know, everybody's innocent until proven guilty in our constitutional republic. However, this is not done by any stretch. Our men and women out there in the Bureau have worked tirelessly all weekend. I just got back to D.C. Last night. And, Cash and I were out there on the scene. We walked the scene. We went through every single component of it. We saw the evidence up close and personal. And we went out there to be able to make command decisions with our team on the ground. And I think the process, although not perfect, of course, I think the process went pretty well, considering we got him in 33 hours.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Deputy Director Bongino. And I got to say, I mean, I tell it like it is here as much as I can, but you know my political perspective and where I'm coming from. As I see Deputy Director Bongino and earlier this morning Director Patel. I'm dumbfounded as to some of the criticism. People on the right and conservatives that were somewhat critical of Kash Patel and the FBI's handling of this. I mean, they started moments after this murder. They had nothing to work on. They had one very grainy piece of security footage of a figure running across a rooftop. And from there, they were able to sort of retrace the footsteps, the exit, the route that this person took. They traced it into the woods. They found the weapon. They were able to find some images and photos that they enhanced and put out there. And they got the parents to, to turn him in because they put the picture out there as quickly as they did. And it seems to me that you turn around an investigation like this in 36 hours and you have the suspect in hand. Yes, there was cooperation from local police, and there was certainly cooperation from the family. Think about the father, as we mentioned. We talked about this with Chris DeGaulle on Friday's show. The moral courage and clarity for this father to be able to turn in his own son, knowing that he was guilty of this horrific crime. And I know that we all like to think Monday morning quarterbacking that we would do that as well, but that's not an easy thing to do. I'd like to think that I would do that with my son, but at the same time, I'd be horrified, and it would destroy me to have to turn in my own son for such a horrible crime. These are complicated issues morally and ethically, and it seems to me the FBI and law enforcement locally did a hell of a job to be able to bring this guy in as quickly as they did. I'm no expert, but it just seems that way. That's where things stand right now. Clear the record up, though. This is not a both sides situation. This is not, oh, there's horrible violence on both sides. We'll get into the details and show it to you in just a second. But the demands for President Trump to in some way transcend the reality on the ground right now and not speak out about what we see clearly happening in our country, and clearly violence being okayed and authorized and celebrated on the left toward him and toward his friends and toward us. Well, I'm sorry. The president is doing exactly what he should be doing, telling the truth and confronting the evil that we're facing right now. All right. Over the weekend, there were vigils, there were prayer sessions, there was candlelight, there was singing, there was acknowledgement of who Charlie Kirk was, what he stood for, and what a great loss we are all suffering because he was ripped away from us last week by that assassin's bullet. And liberals, the left, the organized hate mob, well, they did exactly what you'd expect them to do. Let me show you the good, the bad, and the ugly here.
Happened to Charlie was unspeakable, Everyone is destroyed over this.
So Michael and his family created a memorial along their fence to honor the slain CEO of Turning Point USA. But late Saturday night, vandals lit the display on fire.
When they burnt that fence, that fire could have went into that house and it could have really harmed somebody.
It's the rhetoric. It's what people are being fed. There's so much hate in this world, and we need to stop.
The vandals also broke the back window of the family's SUV. Neighbors have rushed to provide them with support.
I saw the damage that had done to my friend, and it ruined me.
When we quit communicating with each other, when we stopped the dialogue, and we just dehumanized each other.
The family spent time repainting the memorial. Now they send this message to all in the community, regardless of anyone's political affiliation.
There you go. A little bit more here. Here's some video from college Republicans for an on-campus prayer vigil for Charlie Kirk and what the campus liberals did.
I don't want your salvations.
Why?
I want you to fucking die. We're not going to give you a second chance, even when you beg for it on your knees, begging and pleading.
There you go. Charming, isn't it? That's somebody's child. I'm sure mom and dad are super proud of them. And then there was this moment. Pay close attention to the song being sung by these leftists. All right, so that was in New York City, I'm guessing near the campus of New York University, where they were singing God Bless America at their candlelight vigil for Charlie Kirk. And did you catch what this guy was singing? I think it's a guy. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao. All right. If that sounds familiar, it's because Bella Ciao was written on one of the bullets intended for Charlie Kirk. That's one of the engravings. Oh, gosh, I don't know what it means. We may never know what it means, says the New York Times on the bullet engravings. Well, we do know what it means. All we had to do is ask an expert. Andy Ngo is an investigative reporter who is steeped in the culture of Antifa. It's all he does. He's had his life threatened multiple times and has ended up in the hospital with his face disfigured because of violent attacks from Antifa. He knows Antifa. He's forgotten more about Antifa than any writer at the New York Times. In fact, if the New York Times had any sense, if they really want to cover what's going on in this country with regard to political violence, they'd hire Andy Ngo. Andy Ngo explains exactly what Bella Ciao means. Andy Ngo. It's hard for me to overstate the significance of the Charlie Kirk assassin suspect allegedly putting the lyrics of Bella Ciao on a rifle cartridge. That is probably the most important rallying song to Antifa militants for decades. The 2019 Tacoma Antifa gunman cited it in his manifesto before carrying out a deadly shooting and explosives attack at an ICE facility. By the way, how much coverage did that political attack get? One of the Los Angeles Antifa ringleaders is a man named Vishal Singh. He's been repeatedly banned on X for his calls to deadly violence. He named his company Bella Ciao Cinema. So Bella Ciao is and by the way, the song Bella Ciao was a song that the Italian freedom fighters would sing when they were literally fighting Hitler and Mussolini. And of course, these dirtbags slander us and slime us as the new fascist and the new Nazis. So this becomes their rallying cry. These violent left-wing Antifa types, the same groups that this alleged assassin was steeped in, so steeped that he engraved Bella Ciao on one of the rifle cartridges intended for Charlie Kirk. And so then at the prayer vigil in New York, while people are singing spiritual and patriotic songs to the memory of their fallen friend, Charlie Kirk, these bastards sit there and sing. They sing the song that inspired the assassination. They're the worst. They're the worst possible people on our planet, and we should pray for them and pray for their families and hope that there's some salvation. Much more here as prayer vigils and monuments were erected for Charlie Kirk, and the left decided that they can't just let us grieve. They can't just walk away and say, okay, fine, he mattered something to them. Let them have their day or their weekend or their week. Let them be in their grief. No, they have to come and they have to crap on us. They have to try to destroy everything. There's no audio on this, is that right? These are leftists who stormed into a Charlie Kirk monument and tried to tear it down. Now, they were met with some instant karma and quickly arrested. Here he is. This is one of them. He's a teenager. And he was immediately arrested. This happened in Arizona, just outside the Turning Point USA headquarters, where an impromptu makeshift memorial has been created with balloons and flowers and notes. And by the way, check out the shirt that this guy decided to wear before he went and tried to stomp all over the flowers and the balloons and the memorial. Yeah, you're seeing right. That's the same shirt that the murderer wore, the alleged suspect in custody. These people are broken. They're broken. All right. And so now here we have CNN talking about what inspired this murder. And well, take a listen and we'll comment after.
Brian, Delta Airlines, American Airlines, United, they have said that they've suspended workers for some of their social media posts about Kirk's killing. We've seen reports of teachers and college professors being suspended for posts after he was shot. Washington Post opinion columnist Karen Attiah, she said that this morning she's been fired for her posts about political violence. What do you see in this clampdown in response?
Yeah, and some of Karen's posts about political violence were trying to point out that there's a long history in America of political violence. She says that her posts were called unacceptable by management and she was fired. So that's an example of the Washington Post. And at this point, there are hundreds of examples of people being fired from their jobs. Most of these people are not public figures. They were anonymous until a few days ago when this conservative campaign organized online targeting people that it says are attacking Kirk, bashing Kirk, blaming Kirk for his own death. I want to point out that the range of offending posts has varied dramatically. There are some people in the dark corners of the internet celebrating Kirk's murder, and I find that personally grotesque. You also have people out there who are performatively showing a lack of sympathy, saying, I'm not going to mourn for him. People, for example, sharing controversial comments from Kirk's past and saying, look what he was saying. He's part of the problem in America. So you have this now coordinated conservative campaign to try to get people fired for a wide range of opinions. And look, this is a new form of cancel culture, something that the right complained about when, they were saying the left was targeting people 4, 5, 6 years ago. The truth is cancel culture never goes away. It just changes shape. And the free speech group FIRE said it really well over the weekend. They said, we should remember, we don't win an argument just by ruining someone's life. All we do is ruin someone's life. And that is some of what's happening now as people get fired for these comments. But we should recognize, as we talk about free speech here, if you have a relationship with a private employer, that employer can choose to fire you for a variety of reasons. It gets a little more complicated if you work for a school or a university, but these private employer relationships are what they are. And it has started a new front in a debate about what is appropriate, what is not appropriate in the wake of a national trauma like this. And that is what we're going through, Kate, a national trauma. No, we're nowhere close to civil war. People should knock it off with that talk. Most Americans are going about their daily lives, not wanting revenge or retaliation or any of that. But given how tense the climate is, I think we are going to see more of these politically motivated firings and campaigns going forward.
It's amazing to see Brian Stelter and anyone on CNN now suddenly wringing their hands and being very concerned and tut-tutting the idea that somebody might be publicly chastised or even lose their jobs, their careers, or their reputations because they've been canceled for saying something untoward. And again, you heard the both sidesing here, right? Well, these conservatives, they decried cancel culture 5 or 6 years ago when they were the targets of it. Okay, so a couple of things here. First of all, let's stipulate that, even though it's completely exaggerated and completely twisted in how you're describing these comments versus anything that someone on the conservative side might have been canceled for in the past. I'll explain that in a second. But let's just go with your premise. Conservatives didn't like cancel culture when conservatives' lives were ruined and people were fired for saying something 5 or 6 years ago. So why should they be happy if it's going on now? Why should they be leading the charge if it's going on right now? Well, your question answers itself, pal. If it's true that conservatives' lives were ruined by cancel culture 5 or 6 years ago, these are the rules you created, buddy. To step back and say, hey, well, now conservatives can't do that to us because they didn't like it back then. No. We didn't like it back then, but you taught us well. And so if those are the rules that you've set up, and this is the game that we're all supposed to play in, then get ready because it's about to come back right in your face. I'm so glad you're worried about it. I'm so glad that now you can say, well, you see, you're being inconsistent because you didn't like it back then. That said, now let's set aside my stipulation because you're completely wrong. Let me explain, Brian Stelter, if I may, what cancel culture is. Cancel culture is when somebody gets their life destroyed and they lose their job and get censored and deleted from social media platforms and have their life torn into pieces for something innocent or innocuous or a joke that was not even meant to be taken seriously, but it is blown out of proportion because of the totalitarian left speech police. I'll give you an example. If during COVID-19, you publicly questioned some of the erroneous decisions being made by public health officials, you were canceled. You were fired from your job. You were deleted from social media platforms and silenced and censored for doing so, even though some of the things that you might have been speculating about, like, for instance, I don't know, the editor of the New York Times opinion page who allowed for a sitting senator, Tom Cotton, to write an article speculating that the COVID-19 virus came from the Wuhan lab. That guy was drummed out of his job because he allowed that opinion to be published in the New York Times. Is that comparable? How about a comedian who maybe made a joke about COVID-19, or maybe made a joke suggesting that Black Lives Matter was not something that should be taken seriously? Or maybe somebody who makes a joke about the fact that there are people on the left who believe there are 37 or 58 genders, when in fact there are only 2. And if you make that joke or make that observation or make that comment, your life is destroyed because of it. You see, that's cancel culture. Fast forward to today, when people are losing their jobs because they are celebrating the murder of a 31-year-old father of 2 toddlers. How is that comparable in any way whatsoever? This is not cancel culture. This is airlines and hospitals and school systems deciding that maybe someone who celebrates murder shouldn't be responsible for, a classroom full of children. Maybe doesn't have the judgment to fly our commercial passenger jet, or perhaps shouldn't be one of our lead doctors at a hospital. When you've got that kind of despicable moral judgment to make a public statement like that, that's not cancel culture, Brian Stelter. But thanks for playing. They mentioned a Washington Post columnist, Karen Attiah, who on Blue Sky said, refusing to tear my clothes and smear ashes on my face in performative mourning for a white man that espoused violence is not the same as violence. And then a little bit later, some news, I've been fired from the Washington Post. And Karen is trying to rewrite history by saying that my only direct reference to Kirk was one, by the way, that last post was a oblique reference to Kirk, but clearly was about Kirk. So now she's gaslighting. They're all lying, by the way. That I have no respect for them, because they come out and they say these horrible things about Kirk, and then when they're called out for it and maybe lose their jobs, then they say, well, I wasn't talking about Charlie. I was just talking in general about violence. So here she is lying and gaslighting. I didn't make any direct reference to Kirk. This was the only post that used his own words. And this is the post. And I'm sure you've seen this quote floating around all over the place, that Charlie Kirk allegedly said, black women do not have the brain processing power to be taken seriously. You have to go and steal a white person's slot. Well, that's a horrific racist thing for anybody to say about all black women, right? I would agree with that. That's terrible. I can't believe Charlie said it. But of course, Charlie didn't say it. It's being attributed to him. But he didn't say it. It's a misquote, actually. Here's what Charlie actually said. It was very specific about a very specific person and 2 other people. When this very specific person, the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who was trying to make the case for affirmative action, said that she only got into college because of affirmative action. And just to be clear, the late Sheila Jackson Lee was not known as the smartest member of Congress. So Charlie Kirk, as a funny and provocative talk show host, took that claim and, well, ran with it. Oh, come on. Don't do this to me, spinning circle of death. Hang on. Let me reload this. Stand by. Stand by.
And Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Play cut 52.
But I rise today as a clear recipient of affirmative action, particularly in higher education. I may have been admitted on affirmative action, both in terms of being a woman and a woman of color, but I can declare that I did not graduate on affirmative action. This is my personal story.
I hear because of action affirmative. She can't even say that. We know. It's very obvious to us.
There you go. So that's the full clip. Nowhere in there did Charlie Kirk say black women do not have the brain processing power to be taken seriously. She was speaking very specifically about one very specific person, Sheila Jackson Lee, but then added Michelle Obama and Ketanji Brown Jackson. But that in that case was saying, if we had suggested that these people got into college only because of affirmative action, we would be called racist. But here's Sheila Jackson Lee proclaiming it for herself. I only got into college because of affirmative action. And Charlie Kirk said, yeah, we know. That's right. You didn't have the ability to do it on your own. You had to take somebody else's slot. That's what affirmative action does, by the way. I love that the left is really angry that we're pointing out the reality of the situation. It's not like there's an unlimited number of spaces in college. So yes, this woman got fired, and she claims that her only direct reference was using Charlie Kirk's own words, and even there she has to lie. The lies continued. Here's Bob Villain, who apparently is a rapper that really wants your attention. So, of course, he crapped all over Charlie Kirk, but he had his own version of instant karma.
I want to dedicate this next one to an absolute piece of shit of a human being. The pronouns was, were. Because if you chat shit, you will get banned. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk, you piece of shit.
What a guy. And as you can well imagine, there was instant outcry and calls to cancel whatever other performances. Did you notice the Palestinian flag in the background there too? Celebrating Charlie, clearly celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. You saw it with the smiling and the jumping up and down and the dancing and people cheering. And then when called out on it, this piece of human garbage decided to lie. They can't even own their own hate. There's no reason to respect any of these people. I mean, at least own your hate. Own your bigotry.
Yo, real quick. At no point during yesterday's show was Charlie Kirk's death celebrated. At no point whatsoever did we celebrate Charlie Kirk's death. I did call him a piece of shit. That much is true. But at no point was his death celebrated.
At no point was his death celebrated. I'm so sorry. Should we just rerun this one more time? You tell me if you think this is a celebration. Let's see. I'm not going to play the audio for you anymore. You can see what he's saying. Actually, you know what? You do need to hear the music. Oh, all right. Here we go. Sorry. Stand by. Let's play the music as well.
Because if you chat shit, you will get banned. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk, you piece of shit.
Sure looks like a celebration. They're so gutless that they won't even own their own hate. And then there's the misinformation. I don't know if you saw this going around or not. Or actually, you know what? We'll get to that in a second. Here's another example. And I want to point out, because there was, it's cancel culture. No, it's not cancel culture. It's holding people accountable for their words. And let's be clear, their words are not some racist joke or some offensive, thing. People could get canceled in a workplace environment if they compliment a fellow coworker's appearance, right? Oh gosh, Susan, you look really pretty today. That's it, fired. Wow, that's a lovely blouse you're wearing today, Jill. Fired. Yeah, That's cancel culture, you frickin' morons. But here we've got people celebrating and encouraging political assassination. You can't fire me. That's cancel culture, you hypocrite. But yeah, and by the way, the things that are being said about Charlie Kirk on the left, from the left, are not like anonymous social media accounts of gamers who were sitting in their parents' basement or garage who were just, throwing bombs out there to see how people react. These are professionals. These are journalists. These are musicians. These are doctors. These are nurses. These are judges. These are school board members. These are professors. These are school teachers who are proudly putting their names out there and their faces out there associated with their celebrations of Charlie Kirk's murder. Now, it would be easy to write that off and say, well, these people are just stupid. I can't believe they're putting it out there with their names like that. Are they stupid? No. You see, they didn't think they would suffer any consequences from saying this because they live in their protected little bubble, whether it's academia or whether it's the professional, legal world, if they're judges and lawyers, where everyone around them agrees with them. This is how they talk to each other all the time. And nobody on the left ever has to suffer consequences for saying the vilest, most despicable, bigoted thing because they're the enlightened intellectuals, after all. For instance, Dr. Karen Leader, just an example, but a good one. Florida Atlantic University spent the last 2 days on a tirade calling Charlie Kirk a hateful, racist, sexist, transphobe, falsely claiming he used racial slurs and shared posts from an account called I Smoked Charlie Kirk. Take a look. With all of these false statements that they would put out, you can see Dr. Karen Leader. This was Charlie Kirk, and replying all of these things, all of these fake things that people claim Charlie Kirk said. Have you noticed, by the way, that all the people who were claiming Charlie Kirk said this and Charlie Kirk said that, they are grabbing either a 3 to 8 second clip mid-sentence instead of actually the full thing that Charlie Kirk said, or they're doing what Dr. Karen Leader, her, of Florida Atlantic University does here, which is just retweeting what other people are claiming Charlie Kirk said. And she was obsessed with it. Look at all of the tweets. This was Charlie Kirk. This was Charlie Kirk. This was Charlie Kirk. This was Charlie Kirk. Well, okay, this is Dr. Karen Leader. Fired. Dr. Karen Leader, professor of Florida Atlantic, who spent 3 days demonizing Charlie following his assassination, has been placed on leave, according to Florida Atlantic University. By the way, that ain't enough. That ain't good enough. Leave, that ain't enough. One more example. Fox and Friends this morning, this was brought out to by I believe it was Scott Pressler, I think, released this information. She reached out to Scott Pressler. This is a nurse who tells her story about how a doctor over the weekend expressed no remorse, in fact, was totally in favor of the killing of Charlie Kirk. She complained to the doctor to his face about it. She got fired.
Are you fired?
No, I'm not fired as of right now. Right now, I am suspended indefinitely unpaid.
Why?
So I walked into the nurse's station and I just had learned about Charlie Kirk. I saw this guy. I didn't know who he was at the time. And he was standing there celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, saying how he deserved it. He hated Charlie Kirk and he had it coming to him. And
so you love Charlie Kirk. You didn't just aware of him.
I loved,
yeah,
I'm a big fan of Charlie Kirk. My first retweet in 2018 it was like my first blue checkmark retweet was Charlie Kirk. I was a couple years out of college and loved him ever since.
You're aghast at this. And what'd you say?
So I looked down at his badge because I didn't know, what job, if he was a doctor or a nurse,
Never saw him
before. I look down, I see his badge and it says doctor. And I said, "You're a doctor?" I said, how are you saying this as a doctor that someone deserved to die? I mean, to me, I was just mind blown.
Yeah, and then she found out the next day or later that night, her union reached out to her and said, "You've been put on leave." And forgive me, I said fired. Clearly, she was not fired. She's on leave, but she's being persecuted. She's being punished for challenging the doctor. That's where we are right now. That's where we are right now in terms of the political discourse in this country and where the hate is coming from. And we're supposed to be judged for calling out the lies, for pushing back on the gleeful nature of the left's death cult, celebrating and, frankly, encouraging the next assassination. Well, we're not going to shut up. We're not going to back down. And we're not going to stop calling out the facts and showing the truth in the face of all of the lies that are being said about our friend. There's no way we're going to back down from that. And we're going to continue to expose exactly who they are and what they've done. That's all we can do. But I promise you, there is light at the end of this tunnel, and there is a lot of hope on the horizon. We saw it all weekend long through all of this despair and all this ugliness, and we're going to show that to you right now. Bill Maher is coming so close to actually understanding conservatives in this country, and I do like that he attempts to push back, but I got to tell you, he keeps falling back into this knee-jerk default position in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, where he tries to say, oh, but both sides are guilty. Both sides are responsible. All right, fine. Let's listen to what Bill Maher had to say. He had frontman for Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan, on his podcast. Take a listen, and then we'll explain the truth of the matter.
I might drink a little more than usual today because, I mean, I don't know when this is airing, but this is a shit day because a guy who sat there, Charlie Kirk, got shot today.
Yeah.
And I can't stop thinking about it.
Neither can I.
And we shouldn't. And if you're on the other side of the political divide and you don't care because the wrong team guy got shot, fuck you. You're what's wrong with this country. I might drink a little more than usual today because, I mean, I don't know when this is airing, but this is shit.
Okay, sorry about that. I let it go one more time. Good for him. And that wasn't the end of the good stuff that Bill Maher said here, calling out his pals on the left, calling out his friends in the Democrat Party. He's still a man of the left. Make no mistake. But he is rightly calling out the violence that they're showing.
You know, they're the people who don't want to talk. It's my main issue with them. And Charlie Kirk was a guy who, like, he was always talking. And I talked to him here. You know, the right wingers say what you want about them, but they talk to you. They're not into this leftist thing. The left really has much more of a, I don't talk to you. I don't want to deal with you. You're deplorable. I can't break bread with you.
Yeah.
That attitude. And like, all the right wingers, they don't have that attitude. No, again, I didn't vote for them. And Charlie Kirk and I certainly don't agree on much politically. But he sat here. He's a human being. He's not a monster.
And a husband and a father.
Yes. And I liked him. I liked them all. They're all nice people when you meet them in person. And they're not as crazy as they would. Nobody's as crazy as they make them out to be. And we're never going to solve this unless it begins with both sides agreeing we both do it.
Okay, now this is where he starts to venture into the both sides thing, and we're going to delve into it. But I just want to stop for a moment and observe something. You see, the reason why Bill Maher starts to seem a little bit more reasonable here than his counterparts on the left, his Stephen Colbert's and his Jimmy Kimmel's and his Seth Meyers and the Saturday Night Live crew and all of these other people who claim to be, and Jon Stewart, the difference is what you just saw, that Bill Maher, first of all, attempted to have these people come and sit with him, and he found out that right-wingers would come and sit with him. I've told this story before, I think, on this show, but if not, I'll tell it right now. When I worked with Andrew Breitbart before Andrew died, Bill Maher had Andrew Breitbart come on his show many times. A couple of times I would go with Andrew. I'd be part of his, little entourage as he went to the place where they taped Bill Maher's real-time show in Television City in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, or south of Hollywood in Los Angeles. And we would go there, hang out in the green room, which was full of Bill Maher's writers and all of the liberal and left-wing people. So it's like, me and Alex Marlowe and a couple of other people were, Andrew's posse, and we were way outnumbered. And then afterwards, there was an after party at the Maggiano's over at the Grove in Los Angeles. And Bill Maher's writers were outraged that Bill would talk and socialize and laugh with Andrew Breitbart at the party. I tell this story to explain to you that the reason why Bill Maher has not gone as far as the rest in being completely blinded in rage and hate is that he did not go that extra step to dehumanize us. He actually did talk with us. He would sit. When you sit and you drink with somebody and you laugh at somebody's joke, and Coulter goes on his show all the time, by the way, but none of these other people would do that. None of these other people would talk to Charlie Kirk, talk to Andrew Breitbart or Ann Coulter. They wouldn't give them the time of day. You think Ben Shapiro will ever be invited on Jimmy Kimmel's show or Stephen Colbert's show? No, but they'd be smart to do it. Not only would it be great television, but also, you see, this is the reason why they don't invite them. This is the reason why they don't have them on. Because the second you actually have a conversation with somebody, you have to acknowledge their humanity. You have to acknowledge that they deserve a seat next to you, that their voice deserves to be heard. And the rest of them can't bring themselves to it. I will carve out a little bit of credit to Jimmy Fallon, who recently had Greg Gutfeld on his show. But the rest of them aren't like this. See, the reason why Bill Maher is a little bit different is what he just explained. That these people are not demons. These people are not two-dimensional cardboard cutouts of Adolf Hitler that we can prop up and then burn down with a flamethrower every night for our own personal satisfaction and for our own personal wealth, by the way. You see, the second you acknowledge your political opponent's humanity, it makes it a lot harder for you to destroy them in every possible way. And that's the difference. That said, Bill Maher slips into his liberal trap of saying that both sides are equally guilty of violence. And again, I just want to be clear here. Yes, there is political violence on both sides of the aisle. It's stupid to suggest otherwise. But it's completely asymmetrical. It is not even close to being even in terms of the violence perpetrated against conservatives and the right and churches and conservative politicians for political purposes than it is toward the left. But here's Bill Maher slipping into the trap.
Both sides have to admit they do it. Stop with the, yeah, but, you know, the right wing, absolutely true. The right wing has been terrible. There's a lot of right-wing lunatics and nationalists and fucking violent people and marching in Charlottesville and lots of bullshit that goes on and killing. We can't have that argument, but because plainly the left does it too now. I don't care who started it. Everybody both started it always in these fights. It escalates. It goes up and up and up and up and up. And then we're just on these two sides screaming at each other. Stop it. It has to start with everybody is doing this now and everybody has to stop.
Yeah, everybody has to stop now that it's obvious that we've done it more and we're more guilty. It's funny how that works. Charlottesville, he mentioned, where one guy in a car killed a protester and he was swiftly arrested and prosecuted, and nobody on the right defended him. Nobody on the right celebrated the death of the woman in Charlottesville. And by the way, the left immediately lied about Donald Trump on Charlottesville and tried to turn it into a political weapon and paint everybody as a murderer. January 6th, over 1,000 people had their life destroyed over criminal investigations from the Justice Department after January 6th, when the only person who actually lost their life there that day was Ashley Babbitt, who was killed by a person who was given immediate immunity and free of any investigation because Nancy Pelosi wanted to cover her own ass. Meanwhile, we had a congressman nearly murdered by the left. We had a president, twice assassination attempts in just 1 year with no discussion of that. And now we have Charlie Kirk. I mean, I'm sorry, the corpses are sort of piling up on one side of this issue compared to the other. And now we're supposed to virtuously stand up and wring our hands and say, well, it is a both sides issue. Sorry. It's not even close to being even. And the president reiterated that.
Well, the problem is on the left. If you look at the problem is on the left. It's not on the right, like some people like to say on the right. The problem we have is on the left. And when you look at the agitators, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, the American flag burnings all over the place, that's the left. That's not the right.
That's right. And you probably know of the statistics that the former FBI director, Christopher Wray, and other politicians and media figures continue to spew, which is the greatest threat to domestic terrorism in America is from conservative white Christian men. They're the biggest threat. That's where all the violence is coming from. It's all right-wing violence. That's the really thing. It's like, where are you getting this from? Where are you getting this from? Well, here's a good look at it. Alex Norosta, Cato Institute. He's all about the numbers, and he's Cato, you know. So that means he's not a right-winger, he's not a left-winger. He's just looking for the truth, because libertarians are always about the truth. So here's a chart that's been making the rounds: politically motivated killers and their victims by domestic partisan ideology, broken down into 5-year periods going back to 1975. And look at that, 1995 to 99, right-wing murders, 185. That's huge. But it continues, 2015, 2019, 63, 2020 to 2025, 44 murders. It's like, it seems overwhelming that it's all right-wing murders. But here's the interesting thing about this, if I may. It's shocking. Look at 2000 and 2004. Have you noticed? I mean, I would have thought there would have been a giant graph of 3,000 people murdered for political reasons in the year 2001 here in America, right? That was a politically motivated murder, 9/11. And yet it's nowhere to be seen on the right or the left. Now, we know that that was an anti-American, anti-Christian, anti-Jewish terror attack brought out by crazy radical left-wing jihadists. Maybe they don't fit neatly into the left-wing or right-wing, but that didn't get counted in this graph. That seems a little odd. That seems a little skewed, doesn't it? In fact, somebody else pointed out something that was really fascinating, because the numbers seem kind of small in the last 10 years. There's a reason for that. Every anti-government figure in this chart is considered right-wing. That means Antifa. So if you're an Antifa, anti-US, anti-federal government protester and terrorist, and you murder, let's say, an ICE agent because you hate ICE enforcing immigration laws, well, this chart would put you in the right-wing murderer column, because this chart counts any anti-government murderer as a right-wing murderer. Can I repeat that? If you're a Black Lives Matter protester and you killed a cop, you were put in the right-wing murders column in this chart. Those are the statistics backing up the idea that it's right-wing terrorism and violence that we should be afraid of. Congressman Eric Swalwell decided to quadruple down on the stupid by claiming that it doesn't matter that Kirk Miller was a straight white male. Hold on, he was a straight white male. He was having sex with a guy with a penis. Sorry, I was late on that. Only in Eric Swalwell's California reality is a guy who's living with and in love with and having sex with a male who dresses up as a furry and a female straight. That tells you something about Eric Swalwell's proclivities. All right, let me get this straight. So you're a dude and you have sex with a person that has a penis, and that person dress. Wait, but does the person dress like? How do they dress? Oh, in a furry costume. Oh, all right. But when they're a furry, are they a male, female furry? What is it? Oh, female. Okay, then you're straight. That's fine. I'm Eric Swalwell. That's how I measure these things. Or that he was from a Republican family that voted for Donald Trump. Violence has never been the answer. So there's Eric Swalwell, who said, well, you know, his family's Republican and white, and it's Utah, and they voted for Trump. So clearly, this is another case of right-wing violence. And this is what they continue to do. You see this stuff and you want to lose hope. You see this stuff and your head is going to explode. And that there's no rationalizing with people who are either willfully ignorant of the facts right in front of them, ignore the facts because they don't want it to intrude on their beautiful virtual reality that they've created, that we're all Hitler and Nazi and fascists and they're angels. Or they're just stupid. Could be that. Could be that. Your head could easily explode and you can dive and spiral deep into a rage-filled depression, knowing that there's no way out of this. But I'm glad you stuck around this long with us, pals, because there is a way out, and we saw the way out this weekend. The way out is each and every one of us joining arms, joining hands, locking shoulders, and doing whatever little bit we can to shine that light. Here's a great example. Look at this dude who saw some anti-Charlie Kirk graffiti on the side of his expressway, and he pulled out. First, he went to a Home Depot, got some white paint, and then pulled over on the side of the road. This is in Houston, and decided that he was going to do a little cleanup project there. And he was going to paint over the anti-Charlie Kirk graffiti. Oh, by the way, that dude is Senator Ted Cruz. That's leading by example. I love that. A little bit more happened this weekend that should give you hope. Did you go to church? Was it the first time you've been to church in a while? If not, great. But did you notice something different at church this weekend? Did you notice it was a little harder to find a parking spot? Did you notice it was a little harder to find a seat? You're not alone.
Charlie Kirk, look what you did. No parking. No parking at all. None. Had to park like 5 blocks away from church because everyone wants to come now. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Charlie.
Amen to that as well. Meanwhile, even in Canada, yes, Canada, something happened up there that has Charlie Kirk's heavenly fingerprints all over it. That's right. At a prayer vigil and candlelight vigil for Charlie Kirk in Canada, the Canucks got themselves together and sang our national anthem. And you may be thinking to yourself, how do they know the words to our national anthem? Well, it's easy. It's what they always hear when their hockey team plays us in the gold medal. They're going to hear our national anthem at the end of the day because we kick their butts. That was gratuitous, but it's true lately. I just like to remind my friends in Canada that it has been over 30 years since they've won the Stanley Cup. So, of course, they're used to hearing our national anthem. That's Canada. What about California? Well, here's Huntington Beach, California, maybe the last bastion of freedom and liberty in the Golden State. That is humanity as far as the eye can see in freedom-loving Huntington Beach, California at sunset, right on the Golden Coast there. And that's an amazing thing to see. California is pretty liberal, pretty Democrat dominated. But look at those flags and look at those people getting out to show their support and to say a prayer for Charlie. You know where else it's pretty liberal and pretty left-wing and pretty Democrat? Washington, D.C. And without hardly any notice at all, no public announcements or advertisements, an impromptu vigil was scheduled for the Kennedy Center. Look at the lineup outside the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. for a prayer vigil for Charlie Kirk. We conservatives, we Republicans in Washington, we often feel like a minority. We joke that the Republican Party meets in Washington in a phone booth. We don't even have phone booths anymore. But the room got a little bit bigger for conservatives who love Charlie Kirk. It was a hell of a scene. In fact, it was so crowded that they had to turn people away who had waited for a couple of hours to get in. I have friends who didn't make it in. They ended up going to a pub nearby and doing their own special vigil for Charlie Kirk. But if you did make it inside, you saw a couple of extraordinary displays of emotion and tribute to Charlie Kirk. But I think my favorite goes to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. 2 quick clips from Robert Kennedy Jr. before we close things out today. You've got to see this.
A 17-year-old niece left for Europe to go to college. And while she was packing, her mother, Amaryllis, my daughter-in-law, noticed that she had put a Bible in her suitcase. And Amaryllis was curious about it. And she asked her, and Zoe said to her, "I want to live like Charlie Kirk."
I think Charlie would be happy with that tribute, especially coming from Mr. Kennedy. People don't know this, and it was revealed yesterday by Secretary Kennedy himself that he and Charlie Kirk have been friends for many, many years. And one other thing was revealed here. One other thing that should be part of the ongoing, very lengthy, incredible legacy of Charlie Kirk. Listen to this.
And over the next couple of years, our friendship blossomed. He ended up being the primary architect of my unification with President Trump, which I did my endorsement at his rally, at the Turning Point rally in Scottsdale. And he was the one who put the sparklers on the stage when I shook it. He made a big show of it. And over the next couple of years, our friendship blossomed.
I love that moment. And by the way, I just wanted to show you that was the moment there. I wrote about this morning on my Substack. It was Charlie's idea to put the sparklers because Charlie had a sense of the dramatic. He had a sense of the event and the moment and recognized how what you're seeing right there, was quite possibly the most critical, monumental, game-changing political alliance that we will see in our lifetimes. Think about it for a minute. A Kennedy, a left-wing, pro-choice, climate change activist Democrat, setting aside his political disagreements with Donald Trump to join him for a political coalition and shake hands and join Donald Trump's movement. Donald Trump, the populist conservative Republican, setting aside his difference with Robert Kennedy, joining forces and creating what I do believe was the game-changing moment of the 2024 presidential campaign. In fact, go back and look. We were on the air that day. This show broadcast that day. And I believe I said it at the time that this is the game changer. This may be the union that wins the presidency for Donald Trump. And understand what Secretary Kennedy just revealed. This was Charlie Kirk's doing. You know, you tune into any cable news program or broadcast news program this weekend, and they bring out their seasoned professional political analysts, you know, the people who have been around, your David Axelrod or your Karl Roves or your James Carvilles, because they ran campaigns and they won presidential campaigns for Obama and Bush and Clinton, and these are the seasoned veterans, and not one of them ever pulled off anything as game-changing and remarkable as getting Kennedy and Trump together. Charlie Kirk did that. And of course, Charlie Kirk was never invited on any of those shows to give his political analysis. He didn't even graduate college. He doesn't even go to the right restaurants in Washington, D.C. He doesn't even live in Washington, D.C. Who cares about what Charlie Kirk thinks? He doesn't understand politics. He's just a Yahoo podcaster, talk radio host, activist. Charlie Kirk engineered the greatest political alliance of our lifetimes. He got Kennedy and Trump together. The man was a genius. And, you know, there's a lot of noise right now about how we should be compelled to set aside our differences, figure out what we have in common, join hands, and try to forge ahead with those things that we agree on, those things that we have in common, right? We're hearing that all the time. Why can't people on both sides of the political aisle just get together and figure out what they can accomplish together instead of constantly fighting? And let's actually do something for the good of the country. I mean, look at that. That's what that is. That's what Charlie did. Is there any better example of setting aside your political differences for the good of the country than Bobby Kennedy and Donald Trump getting together, where MAGA meets Maher, and figuring out what we can do and what we can accomplish for the American people? Charlie did that. And yet they still slime him and slander him as a right-wing extremist. It's inexplicable and it's unacceptable. And it's what passes as typical political commentary in America today. But you know better. You're better than that. Okay, so that's all the great stuff that we saw over the weekend at the Vigils, and the hope and the growth and the unity and all of that stuff. I'm sad to say that it's now time to show you all of the violence, all of the riots, you know, conservatives angry that Charlie Kirk has been assassinated in cold blood, obviously took to the streets, shut down traffic, burned down neighborhoods. Oh no, actually none of that happened. We didn't do anything like that. We didn't march. We didn't stop traffic. We didn't disrupt lives. We didn't flip over cars and set them on fire. We didn't chant in the streets. We prayed. We locked arms. We held each other. And then we picked ourselves up, stood side by side, and started walking forward toward the light. It's why we win, and it's why they hate us so much that they have to lie about us to try to win an argument. But we are better than that. We know better than that. And in the end, we will be triumphant. All right, guys. Thank you so much for the show today. Kevin, I believe before we went on the air, you said that you were concerned that our show would be an hour and 40 minutes. Is that what you said, Kevin? Hour 40 minutes?
Something like that.
Hour 28 minutes. Listen, if JD Vance is going to get into this business, I've got to start bringing my A game, okay? Let's get to your super chats. $5 from Casparius. These wackadoodles. This is from Rumble, by the way. Rackadoodles are cracked eggs. They can't be fixed or reconstituted. You can always pray for them, but I'm not religious, so I won't change my mind about them. They want cancellation of all of us. Another $5 from Kesperia said, don't forget Corey Compratore, who was killed at one of the Trump attempts, and some wackadoodles cheered that. Destiny, a horrible lefty streamer, being one of them. Yeah, Destiny's got some serious moral problems there. Can I take my jacket off here while we do the super chats? It gets warm in this studio. Dang it. All right, what do we got? Stumble Boots, $5 super chat. You're cool too. You're cool. I love that. That's all Stumble Boots wants to say. Thank you, Clippy. I appreciate it. Angela with the $2 super chat, 600,000 celebration, 24 hours of Larry. Who's with? No. What should we do though, Kevin? What should we do for the 600,000 celebration? We haven't given it a lot of thought. I'm going to be honest. I thought it would be another week or two.
It would be great if people in the chat could write comments and give us some ideas.
What do you want for the 600,000 special show? It'll be special. It'll be like something not on our regular schedule, not at our regular noontime show. Oh, speaking of that, this Friday, we're going to be on live earlier than usual, probably around 10:30. That's why you should hit that alert button when you subscribe. So when we change our go time, you're notified of it. I'll say that at the beginning of the show tomorrow too, but just keep an eye out for that. Andrew Fay, $9.99 super chat. They say we are using cancel culture while they are using assassination culture. We are not the same. I can't improve on that comment. Well said, Andrew. Good job. Patrick, £5. Patel and Bongino might actually achieve something if they stop doing everything together. The FBI didn't catch the killer. The man's father did. Well, the man's father. Well, but just be clear here. It was Patel who insisted on getting that enhanced photograph out as soon as possible so the father could recognize his own son in there. I want to be fair here, Patrick. I understand the point you're making. And a lot of the media appearances, I'm going to be honest, I don't think that they're always warranted either. These are two people who lived in the media, so I think it's hard for them to resist doing media. But I just want to be clear. The father only turns his son in because of great police work and great work by the FBI, getting those enhanced photos, finding the enhanced photos, knowing where to look for those enhanced photos. That's needle in the haystack stuff. And they isolated it. They found him. They got the picture out there. But I respect your opinion, Patrick. Thank you, sir. Coffee lover, $5 super chat. Charlie Kirk, love. We celebrate you. Amen. Thank you for that, Kafivi. Angela, $5 super chat. We're done with the bringing people together with Democrats. All we can do is pray they found Jesus before it's too late. We fight with truth. Yeah, I'm all for bringing people together as long as at this point it's bringing people together under our terms, which, forgive me for being so demanding, but how about our terms are stop the violence? Stop the violence and acknowledge the fact that we are the majority in this country. We've won multiple times now these elections, and enough with the resistance. Enough with the resistance. We're a constitutional republic. We had election day. We won. Sit down. Thank you, Angela. Dennis Harmon, $25 super chat. Holy Moses. Thank you, Dennis. Hey, Larry, you look so much smarter with glasses. Did Kevin make you say this?
I had nothing to do with this one.
Kevin calls these smart guy glasses. Who makes the frames? These are Armani, I think. Or no. So funny. I take off my glasses to look at them, and now I can't see them. I think it's Ray-Ban, isn't it? It's Ray-Ban. These are Ray-Bans. By the way, does Kevin wear glasses too? Good work, guys. No, Kevin does not wear glasses because he's not smart. I think. Is that fair?
Yeah, that checks out.
Sure. Yeah. All right. He's also young, and his eyes haven't gone yet. Sorry. Angela, $2 super chat. At least they still had lives to ruin. Talking about the cancel culture stuff. Yeah. And yeah, I know. I'm so sick of yeah. Thank you, Angela. I don't need to add to all of these super chats. Psychological projection is £2 super chat. I don't think anyone celebrated murder till recently. Well, there were some people celebrating on 9/11, but that's a whole other story. But yes, I think you're right. This has become a coarsening of our culture, our body politic. God's best friend with a £2 super chat. Bob Villain is blowing wind. Oh, I'm ex-IDF. Are you really ex-IDF? Wow. I bet you have some stories to tell. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, God's best friend. Connie Trefts with a $2 super chat. Thank you for your integrity in journalism. Oh, that means the world to me. Thank you, Connie. We're doing our best here. It's good to have the infrastructure of the Town Hall media family behind us. God's best friend with a £2 super chat. Trump, RFK, Tulsi, all waking Democrats. That's right. They embody exactly what we're told we're supposed to do. Set aside political differences, come together, and get shit done. They celebrate it when it's Liz Cheney flipping and going over there. But when a Democrat flips and comes over to us, they're demonized. Funny how that works. Thank you, gang. Appreciate it. Great day today. I hope you made it through the weekend all right. I missed you. It was a rough one, but we're back and we're in the swing of things. We'll be back tomorrow. Again, reminder, Friday show will be earlier than normal. So make sure you hit that bell on the subscription channel there, wherever you're watching us, so you're getting an alert when we're ready to do our show on Friday. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.
Hey, Larry, I'm sorry. I actually want to jump in because we missed one Rumble super chat, and I want to make sure we get it.
Oh, shoot. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely, Kevin. I don't see it here. I said two of them. Oh, there it is. Thank you. With a super chat from Arthur Giss. No, wait. Is it Arthur? Is this Arthur Brogdon?
Yep.
Thank you, Arthur Brogdon. Just saying, he says, the Oklahoma bombing was on the anniversary of Waco massacre, yet feds never made the connection. Really? Yeah. You know, my in-laws are from Oklahoma City, and they have people from Oklahoma City have very strong opinions about how that investigation went. And yeah, it was amazing that Bill Clinton immediately jumped out there and blamed Rush Limbaugh and conservative. And this is the playbook, by the way. I'll never forget when Gabby Giffords was shot by a lunatic in Arizona, and they immediately blamed Glenn Beck and Sarah Palin. And there was never any evidence of that. And in fact, but they'll point to that. They'll say, well, Gabby Giffords got shot as a political violence. No, the guy didn't even have any idea that she was a congresswoman. Didn't shoot her because she was a congresswoman. The guy was a schizophrenic lunatic. You're not allowed to take every madman that does that stuff and say that it's the same thing as a politically motivated anti-Trump, anti-Charlie Kirk, evil assassin and say, oh, see, it's the same. It's not the same. It's like saying, I don't have a good analogy right now. It's like saying a person who uses his car to plow. Oh, remember the guy who drove his car through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin a few years ago? Remember that? And he did it purposely, on purpose. He wanted to kill as many people as possible, and then write it off as, well, vehicular manslaughter, car accidents happen. People die in car accidents all the time. It's not the same. A drunk driver or somebody losing control of their automobile and driving onto a sidewalk and killing a pedestrian is not the same as a person deliberately driving their car through a parade to kill as many people as possible. There, that's the best analogy I can give you. Thank you, Arthur Brogdon. Appreciate the Rumble super chat. And now we're done. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.